Hey folks, good morning and happy Friday. Welcome to Forecasting Space with me, your host Chase Wilson, the weekly show where we talk all things space from upcoming launches over the next 7 days, as well as interesting space news over the last 7 and more. So first things first, as usual, let's start out, see what kind of launches we have from the continental United States over the next week. Compared to the last few weeks and really the last couple of months, we got a little bit of a slow week coming up. First launch on schedule over the next few days here from the continental United States is NROL-69. That's a Falcon 9 launching out of Cape Canaveral Space Force Station on Monday at 12:42 p.m. Of course, if things go planned, that's the time you want to watch. So this is an interesting one because it's going to be landing back at the launch site. Those are always a treat because you get those better camera views as opposed to being a few hundred miles downrange at the drone ship. This is a bit more of a secretive launch, so we don't know too much about it. NROL, that means the National Reconnaissance Office launch. This actually just follows NROL-57, which happened this morning, very early at 1:49 a.m. So looks like the National Reconnaissance Office has some stuff going up. That's kind of interesting there. Same day, Monday at 5 p.m., we have Starlink Group 11-7 launch from Vandenberg Space Force Base. That's going to land on the drone ship, of course, I Still Love You. Pretty standard affair on that front. And then Wednesday at 8:37 a.m., that's an interesting day to watch. All right, Firefly's launching their Alpha rocket, message in a booster. Now, this is very interesting. This is the LM400 demo. That's actually Lockheed Martin. This is the first of what could be up to 25 launches of a low Earth orbit technology demonstration satellite, actually built and operated by Lockheed Martin themselves. So this is going to be very, very interesting indeed because we don't really see a lot of Firefly out there. I mean, they're doing some very interesting things with satellites and things of the like, but their Alpha rocket hasn't had much time in the spotlight, but I think it's a very, very promising rocket. So I'm very excited to see this thing finally take off and get a little action under its belt. Over the next 7 days, that looks to be most of the launches on the manifest, but we might creep in Starlink Group 12-10 in there. We don't have a firm date on that yet, but that is something else to watch. But in the meantime, yeah, like I said, relatively slower for the next 7 days. That concludes our launches for the week, and that segues right into the perfect time to talk about the news over the last week, which has been mostly dominated by the fact that at last, after 9 months, Butch and Sunny are back from the ISS. Yes, indeed, on Monday, the 2 astronauts finally got back into a SpaceX Dragon capsule and were brought home. Indeed, 9 months, that is a long time, especially when you consider the original demo mission for the Starliner that they were going up on only intended to last 8 days. So, that is rough. I can only imagine how that is in their bodies after 9 months up there in space, man. The thing 0G does to the body indeed. So, this is very interesting because this is sort of the end of that saga, so to speak. The Starliner's already been home for a bit now, so they've been investigating why exactly it's failed. And I'll tell you what, it's just not been very hot. Not to get too opinionated, but man, Dragon has really kind of secured its place as the primary launch vehicle for astronauts from America. It's kind of a shame if you think about it, because double redundancy is of course a good thing, but Starliner's failures are why we're in this situation to begin with. Like I said, the original mission was 8 days. At least that was the plan, to go up, demonstrate life support capabilities, thrusting in space, things like this of the Starliner, but it ended up 9 months. The reason it ended up 9 months and the Starliner ended up back home earlier is because they didn't quite trust it to be in perfect working order. So just to be safe, they kept Butch and Sunny up there and went ahead and autonomously deported, so to speak, like got it off of the ports from the ISS, brought it home, and did some investigations there. They would have been fine if they were on it, but the margin of error when you're dealing with humans' life is basically infinity to 1. You don't want to take those sorts of risks. So it's fantastic to have those folks home. Butch is actually a Tennessee native, so us here at Tennessee Valley Weather definitely glad to see him back on terra firma, but very interesting that it took this long. Very interesting space developments indeed. Now, there has been some politicization about this, by the way, which I do want to acknowledge because it is a part of the news cycle, but I also want to say that I don't think that's entirely ordered from either side. In all reality, technology fails sometimes. That really is, I think, the simplest way to put it. And what we need to consider is just be glad they're home, right? At least we didn't go ahead and throw them on the capsule and God forbid something happened, right? So all things that end well, end well. And you know what? We're in a good position right now. In place of my photo of the week, matter of fact, speaking of Butch and Sunny, on landing, they had a couple visitors, and I want to do a clip of the week from the drone shots that NASA was getting there from the capsule in the water. Look off to the side, you'll see a couple very interesting honorary recovery members, if you will. Yes, indeed, your eyes don't deceive you. Those are dolphins there swimming off the port side of the capsule. How cute is that? That is just fantastic. And like I said, NASA actually referred to them as honorary recovery team members, which is great, which is also a little concerning in my opinion, because now the dolphins know about space travel, and dolphins are some of the smartest creatures on Earth, so we might have another space race coming up, dolphins versus humans. Who will win? Perhaps they'll go onto the lakes of Europa and maybe make a civilization there. I think we got to keep a close eye on those dolphin friends there. Watch them very, very closely. But no, that's fantastic. Love seeing this sort of thing, this cross-species curiosity. Space travel really brings us all together, doesn't it? Now, I'd say that just about concludes this episode of Forecasting Space. I'm your host, Chase Wilson. Tune in next week and let's see what kind of launches we have to look forward to then, what kind of news unfolds over the next week. See you then.